Hi, so today's topic for editorial discussion is antibiotics with a promise. So what this article deals with is that it talks a little about antimicrobial resistance and how the efficacy of, or how the importance or power to be bit more down. Thing is how the power or the efficacy of antibiotic is also getting is getting reduced, and it also talks about granting emergency use authorization. So we will see what EUA is, that is emergency use authorization. We will see basics about antimicrobial resistance. We will also see the compassionate use. So why this article was in use? So what has happened recently? Recently in Hyderabad there was this 18-year-old boy who was suffering from T-cell leukemia. He was suffering from leukemia. Not only leukemia, he was also affected by a particular pathogen, a particular microbe called as the Pseudomonas aeruginosa. But in general, this can be easily treated with a wide array of antibiotics. The thing is, this particular microbe, it has gone extensively drug resistant. It is showing resistance to drugs. It is not getting affected by regular antibiotics and other antimicrobials. So that is what the major reason that that 18-year-old boy, these things, both T-cell leukemia and this particular pathogen or particular microbe, threatened his life to a various extent. So the thing is, what happened was, doctors they used two particular antibiotics known as cefepime and cidebactam. That has not yet been approved in India under compassionate grounds or compassionate use protocol. That is what this compassionate use protocol. They use the cefepime and cidebactam, which has not yet been approved in India. It is undergoing international trials. There are 3 types of trials. We will see what those trials and all. And cefepime and cidebactam, they are going phase 3 trials internationally, and before that it was used under compassionate use. So compassionate use is nothing but when an individual is affected by a life-threatening disease. The hospital or the pharmaceutical provider or the individual himself, he can write to the authorities citing for importing or getting medicines that are not yet approved in India, but their efficacy with respect to their condition is more. But that is, it can easily target the pathogen that is affecting their life or is threatening their life. So that is what happened here. That is what compassionate use is. Drug that is not approved in India can be imported or bought to India on compassionate grounds if the individual's life is under question or is threatened. So that is what compassionate use is. And compassionate use, it does not find a place in our law books. It does not find a place explicitly, but implicitly there have been a lot of instances. For example, there is this thing called as XDR-TB, extensively drug resistant tuberculosis. So for that particular disease, particular type of TB, we import a lot of drugs under this compassionate use grounds. So it is not explicitly mentioned in the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, but various other instances have been witnessed with respect to this compassionate use in India. So that is what compassionate use is. The thing is, what is AMR? What is antimicrobial resistance? So as the name suggests, antimicrobial resistance is nothing but the resistance of a microbe, be it bacteria, be it virus, be it other pathogens, parasites and all, be it any type of microbe. A microbe, when it shows resistance to antimicrobial drugs, antivirals or antibacterials, and all these types of antimicrobials are there. So when these microbes, bacteria, virus and all these microbes, they show resistance, they can withstand the attack by antimicrobes or drugs that are used to neutralize these microorganisms. When they resist these drugs, this is known as antimicrobial resistance. So antimicrobial resistance, it can wreak a very big havoc in the world. In fact, WHO has called it as a great global concern, AMR as a great global concern, and has also dubbed it as the silent pandemic. We all know this COVID-19 pandemic, right? Yes, it was outright. We had a lot of mechanisms to handle that, but with respect to AMR, a lot doesn't have awareness about what AMR is. That is the problem with AMR. It is a silent pandemic. It is a very big killer. It is a global concern, global health concern. So yes, that is what AMR is, and a lot of people are losing their lives due to antimicrobial resistance or the inefficacy of antimicrobials. So yes, so they are also called as super bugs or superpower bugs. So that is what antimicrobes are. So the reason of increasing, or what causes antimicrobial resistance? The first, there are various reasons. We have just listed a few reasons. The first major reason is improper use. So improper use of antimicrobes, using antimicrobes and antibiotics in an improper manner. For example, there was this large scale use of a drug called colistin. There was this large scale use of this drug called colistin in the poultry feed, for feeding the chicken and hens and all these things, meat industry, right? So yes, it was used for colistin was used in the meat industry, especially in the poultry industry, and this led to increase in colistin resistant bacteria in the meats, especially that of chickens. So colistin resistant bacteria. So colistin is an antibiotic that is used to target a particular type of microbe, and these microbes were becoming colistin resistant. They were easily able to withstand the attack by colistin. So this is what is happening due to improper use of antibiotics and all these things. And on a more general note, on a more human note, the thing is, we all go to the doctor, right? We all go to the doctor and a lot of things happen. He gives us tablets, say for 7 weeks, but most people, they get it only for 2 or 3 weeks, right? Sorry, 2 or 3 days. What happens is that the doctor has prescribed it for a week or 7 days, and we are just using it for 2 or 3 days. So what happens is that the efficacy of the drugs or the pathogens that are inside our body, they will easily withstand, they will easily attack, or they will easily become resistant to those drugs when used for a lesser days, than the prescribed amount or a prescribed limit. So this can also happen. This is also an improper use of antimicrobials. So yes, improper use of antimicrobials. And the other thing is pharmaceutical pollution. Pharmaceutical pollution in the sense, there are a lot of pharmaceutical manufacturing units in India. In fact, India is also known as the pharmacy of the world, right? So yes, there are a lot of manufacturing, and India in terms of volume and value, we are at the top 3 and 14th positions. All these things are happening. So yes, in these areas surrounding these pharmaceutical manufacturing units, pollution can happen. Some sort of drugs that they have been producing can be leaked into the environment, and these bacteria, they can fight against it and become resistant. So that is what adaptation is, right? The basics of all humans is evolution and adaptation. So yes, that is happening, and these bacteria, they adapt themselves. These bacteria, they adapt themselves to the pharmaceutical products that are targeted against them. So this is what happening. This is the major reason for antimicrobial resistance. And other thing is poor sanitation. Poor sanitation among people is also a great concern when it comes to causing antimicrobial resistance. So these are the major reasons that causes antimicrobial resistance. So now what is the way forward? How can this be addressed? The thing is, first is judicial use. Judicial use in sense, we know like colistin should not be used in the poultry industry. There are a lot of regulations regarding that, and if the doctor prescribes a particular drug for a particular day, we must try to follow the regimen what the doctor has suggested. So these are all are judicial use, and antibiotics should not be wasted. So when antibiotics are wasted, these drugs, these microbes, they easily attack or they easily become resistant to such antibiotics. So antibiotics must be judicially used. So that is the first way forward. Another thing is monitoring. There must be constant surveillance and monitoring of microbes. We have to check on a periodic level. On a periodic level, we have to check the resistance of microbes. We can take a particular microbe and check this week this has these types of mutations. The next week this has these type of mutations, and over a period of time we have a very big set of data that can be analyzed to check for antimicrobial resistance and all these things. And the other thing we must do is R&D. We must research and develop innovative strategies and mechanisms or measures to counter AMR, that is antimicrobial resistance. So yes, and the third point that has been suggested in this particular article titled as Antibiotics with a Promise is extension of emergency use authorization. Emergency use authorization is nothing but extending authorization for a particular drug in emergency cases or emergency circumstances. That is what emergency use authorization is. So if a drug has to get approval from a particular regulator, be it in any country, FDA in the US or in the India also CDSCO is there. If it has to get approval from that particular country, it has to pass 3 types of trials. There are 3 types of trials that a drug has to pass: phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 1 is initially they are testing it on, the first time they are testing it on humans. They are testing in phase 1, only healthy humans are administered the drug. Only healthy people are administered the drug in phase 1, and this is the first time it is being tested on the human. So yes, in the second drug the sample size is getting bigger. Sample size is getting bigger to accommodate a few more number of people. Mostly in phase 1 at 3 to 5 members, 1 to 5 members only will be in the sample size, and in the phase 2 this number grows. This number is growing, and in phase 3 around 1000 to 3000 people are used from various countries and various religion, various race, various social background, social status, and all these people are used. Around 1000 to 3000 people are given this drug to test its efficacy and efficiency. So this is what this is the process that has to be followed while testing a drug. And when drugs are in this third stage, when drugs are in the third stage of trials, EUA can be given. That is, authorization can be used for emergency purposes. For in recent times also during COVID, this Sputnik, the Russian vaccine, it was given emergency use authorization. It was not completely in the market. It did not get complete approval. But yes, COVID, it was an emergency situation and it demanded extraordinary actions, right? So we gave this emergency use authorization. So when giving emergency use authorization, the person who is getting the vaccine or the person who is getting the drug administered to him or her has to know that there are risks. Has to know it. The people who are administering it to the person has to tell them that this is not a completely approved drug. This has only got emergency use authorization and there will be potential side effects. This has to be communicated to the person receiving the dose, right? This is one thing. And yes, one big thing, one of the major merits of emergency use authorization is that it can easily help us ward off large scale emergency situations like that of COVID. And in recent times, these things also such as the C5 and Cidebacter and all, if given EUA, they can be helped to reduce or counter antimicrobial resistance. So this can happen. This is one thing that can happen. But what are the disadvantages? One major advantage and one major disadvantage is that there are a lot of potential side effects. It can lead to a lot of potential side effects. Even though used sparsely in emergency situations, those emergency situations itself, it may lead to a lot of side effects, because that particular drug, though it has passed phase 1 and phase 2, it has not yet received approval. It is only in the phase 3 of trials, right? So yes, this has been going on, and there may be, mostly there won't be, but there may be issues or there may be complications and other side effects by issuing EUA. So this is what EUA is, something that is given to a drug for usage in emergency times that has not yet received complete approval. So this is what the article also suggests, to extend emergency use authorization to the drugs that can efficiently target antimicrobial resistance. Thank you.